We are back this week with some helpful information, some tips that maybe you were not aware of, and some reasons behind why you should actually eat meat. And we're going to tell you what is the type of quality you're looking for and why. But before we get started, for those of you who aren't familiar with who we are, my name is Jessica Melnick. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, the founder of the Anti-Arthritis Method, the host of the Happy Joints Arthritis Solutions Group, and I help both women and men with various forms of arthritis get back to living life the way they choose to, not the way they have to. And Casey, I'll pass it on to you.
Yep. My name is Casey Kephart. I'm the founder of the Feel Good Formula. I'm a functional medicine nutritionist, and I work with women with all different types of autoimmune diseases to get you back to the activities you love, squash those symptoms, and get your life back, basically. And I reside in St. Petersburg, Florida, where it's a human sauna outside.
I can only imagine what summer in Florida feels like.
Hot as hell.
Yeah, hot and sticky. It is very smoky here in Saskatchewan today. We've had an exceptionally warm summer, which means, unfortunately, forest fires. And so we do not have any forest fires really close to us, but the smoke travels really far. So we have forest fires up north in my province and a neighboring province. And so we are getting a lot of that here today, which makes it look really eerie and weird out because it's like it's cloudy, but not. And so the sun is there and it's light out, but it's very kind of eerily dark. So creepy and weird, but nothing we can do about it. So global warming, folks.
As an equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, like being outside in that smoke.
It's basically smells like you're in a giant bonfire. Like
I can only imagine what that's doing to your lungs. Yeah. Not to freak you out, but I'd be worried about that.
Well, there's nothing I can do about it, right? So it's just like, well, I just gotta wait it out and hope that, the wind shifts and it, maybe blows north where nobody lives.
Right. Yeah, up your liver detox.
Right? Well, good thing I take a lot of supplements, and I'm sure there's something in there that's helping with all that detox.
Yeah.
So speaking of detox, we're going to talk about quality of meat here today and the nutrition that's actually found in meat. So I know that a lot of my clients have been told by their doctors or things that they've read on the internet that you should give up eating red meat or really cut back on meat in general if you have arthritis because it's inflammatory. And we're here to tell you, no, that's not true unless you are eating things like feedlot and conventionally raised cattle and meat. So yes, those types of animals can be inflammatory if you're eating their meat because they are raised and produced in a way that, they're not as nutritious. And they also have different chemicals and toxins in them that we don't want to expose ourselves to. So let's look at feedlot cattle. So there was a 2016 study that showed that feedlot cattle have increased blood glucose and cortisol levels. So we know that as humans, we don't want to have increased blood glucose and cortisol levels. That just leads to all sorts of things like heart attack risks and weight gain, not a good thing. So I can understand they'd have increased cortisol levels because it's a stressful environment to be crammed into a small space with a whole bunch of other animals. So not the way they were meant to live. And increased blood glucose comes as a result of high cortisol levels, which means also more fat storing as well. And when we look at the fat of conventionally raised and feedlot animals, that's where their toxins are stored. And so when we're eating an animal that has a lot of fat or we're eating fatty cuts of meat, we are also getting more of the toxins. But if we're looking at grass-fed beef, for example, they have a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in their fat, which is actually really anti-inflammatory and good for us. So let's look a little bit more at some of the nutrients that are found between these feedlot cattle and grass-fed and pasture-raised. So when we look at grass-fed beef, for example, there is higher thiamine and riboflavin that is found in grass-fed beef. So I know sometimes, at least I didn't realize that besides protein, like what else are we really getting from meat, for example? I didn't realize that there's also phytonutrients that we are getting from meat. So thiamine and riboflavin are two forms of B vitamins, which are really important for helping our bodies adapt to stress, among other things. And grass-fed beef has much higher rates of these than feedlot cattle. And like I was saying before, they also have better fatty acid composition as well. So pastured meat is lower in saturated fats and cholesterol. It has more CLA, which is conjugated linoleic acid, which is also a really healthy fatty acid. And it also has much higher omega-3 fatty acids compared to feedlot finished cattle. So much more nutrition in pasture-raised and grass-fed beef than feedlot beef. And let's look at omega-3s. Omega-3s lower metabolic disease risk. They also decrease inflammation. So for those of you who are in my community, we know that omega-3 fatty acids are really, really important to decrease our overall inflammation. And when we decrease overall inflammation, we reduce pain as well. So studies have actually shown that consuming between 3 and 5 grams of omega-3 fatty acids per day is just as effective, if not more effective, than ibuprofen, for example, or NSAIDs. So pretty significant, something you definitely want to have in your diet. And you don't only have to eat fatty fish to get omega-3s. You can get it from grass-fed beef. So Casey, did you want to take over and share a little more of this sciencey information today?
Yes, I love listening you talk to wow, I love listening to you talk about this. I loved reading all about this as well and educating people about it, because everything that you just said and that we have read about and been educated about meat, it's totally against what we think about meat and what people come to us with, that it raises your cholesterol, that saturated fat is bad, that it's giving us inflammation. But when we're eating the right quality of it, it's doing just the opposite of that. But we are not shooting all of this information out in mainstream media, so none of us really know about it. And we're probably we're doing ourselves more harm if we're not eating this pasture raised food, because we're not getting all of the amino acids that we could be. Our bones may be more brittle. Our brain may be more foggy. We have more inflammation if we're not eating it. So the take home here is going to be pasture raised, grass fed, grass finished, not any sort of meat, not grain fed, not cattle feedlot fed, not McDonald's and all of these other meats where you can go and get. So moving on to more anti-inflammatory effects of meat, the meat has CLA in it. And just as Jessica said, that's conjugated linoleic acid. And this is an amino acid. And this amino acid in particular, and it comes in a form of coconut oil too, but when it's in general, it can help with weight loss. So it also is anti-carcinogenic. And with the weight loss, it's adapogenic, has adapogenic properties as well. So it can help reduce risk of cancer, mainly colon and breast cancer, which is funny. We're telling you that meat, pasture-raised meat, can help decrease colon and breast cancer. Tons of studies on it. Go research it if you are more interested. CLA is 1.5 times higher in grass-fed beef than in grain-fed beef. So again, showing that when you eat grass-fed over grain-fed, you're getting tons more nutrients in the beef and cattle and whatever meat that you're eating than you would in grain-fed.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows that if you eat meat, of course, with the other correct things in your diet, you can actually lose weight. We just think of it so opposite. There's phytonutrients in meat, and we're going to go through what these are and what they can do for you. So prepare for your mind to be blown even more about the healthy benefits of meat. So there's things called, and I can never say this word. We even looked up how to say this word, terpenoids. Was
I
that
think
correct?
that's right. Yeah,
Okay,
terpenoids.
terpenoids. These are anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, antiviral, and anti-carcinogenic properties. So grazing animals accumulate higher amounts and a variety of terpenoids and other phytochemicals. So when you have this cattle that has this very broad spectrum variety of grass and bushes and what word am I like pasture to eat on, they're getting a lot more diverse in their nutrient profile, just like we would if we had a very diverse plate of vegetables, fruits, and food. We're getting all sorts of nutrients. This is the same thing for a pasture raised animal. So they're getting a lot of terpenoids, which is anti-inflammatory, all the things I just said. They're also getting phenols, which is antioxidative, anti-inflammatory, and they protect against various cancers, hepatic disorders, which is kidney, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative diseases, which is your brain, type 2 diabetes, obesity, improved immune function, and gut microbial composition, which is just the good bacteria and bad bacteria ratio. Again, we want 80% good bacteria, 20% bad bacteria. And these phenols in the meat can help with that. There's also carotenoids in meat. And these are found in the plants and the fruits that these pasture-raised cattle would be eating. These are fat soluble, and it's responsible, like Jessica was saying, with the pasture-raised fat is different than the grain-fed fat on the meat. The carotenoids are responsible for the yellow tint in the fat on a pasture-raised, let's say, steak. So you might think that the meat has gone bad, which possibly it might have if you're in a conventional store. But if it's a pasture-raised steak, or let's just go with steak, and you find that yellow tint, that's actually meaning that it is very healthy for you, and you're going to get more of those carotenoids, the vitamin A, the omega-3s in there. You're getting a very dense nutrient profile if you eat that fat. I know a lot of us cut off the fat of basically anything, of chicken, of meat, steak. But if it's pasture raised, eat it. It is probably the most nutritious part of that steak. And I know sometimes it's a texture thing for people. It's like eating the skin on fruits or a potato or something like that. So carotenoids are precursors to vitamin A, just meaning that it makes the vitamin A in our bodies. It improves cognitive function, which improves brain function, reduced metabolic diseases such as cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, protection from age-related macular degeneration, which is your eyes going bad as we age, antioxidative, and anti-inflammatory effects. So I want to just hone in here on what Jessica said in the beginning, and what we're saying now is what the animal eats, we are also eating. You are what you eat. So if your animal that you are eating has high blood pressure and high cortisol, like we talked about in the beginning of this live, so does its meat. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense, but like that is what is transferring over to us. And that is essentially what is going to happen to us if we keep eating shitty meat, for lack of a better word. So if this animal is eating carotenoids and phenols and terpenoids, all these anti-inflammatory vitamin A, vitamin E things, that's also transferring to us, and we are going to abundantly have that as well.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't caught on yet, we're talking a lot about antioxidants here. And I think it's just a really interesting topic because I don't think most of us have ever really associated meat with antioxidants. We associate things like superfoods, like plant foods like blueberries and sweet potatoes and leafy greens. You know, those are like the things that are high in antioxidants. And yes, they are, but so is good quality meat. So even a couple more things that you're going to find in good quality meat are things like, this is the one that's always hard for me to say, tocopherols, which is like a vitamin E, and it's best known as an antioxidant to have antioxidative effects similar to the benefit of carotenoids, which Casey just talked about. So it overall like works against oxidative stress and its effects, which we all need, especially, those of you like us who are out there, ambitious women working hard, burning the candle at both ends sometimes. We need all the help we can get in that area. And grass-fed beef itself has higher glutathione content, which is a potent cellular antioxidant, and it's great for the gut lining, which those of you in my community with arthritis, your gut lining needs lots of TLC, so you need all the help you can get when it comes to maintaining and repairing your gut lining if you want your symptoms to decrease. And also, glutathione has higher levels of an enzyme providing cellular defense. So it protects your cells as well. And anything that protects your cells is also going to reduce cancer risk as well. So just some food for thought, especially because I know, like I said, I never really realized how many phytonutrients and antioxidants that a good quality grass-fed meat would have. And so there you go. Then this is all backed by studies and science to show you that the nutrition in these types of meat is much superior to the nutrition that you're going to be getting in conventionally raised meat. And I also tell my clients, we can't always afford the best quality meat all the time. So if, you're looking at your budget and you're needing to cut back, maybe instead of getting the fattier cuts of conventionally raised meat, you stick to the leaner cuts because, like we were saying before, a lot of the toxins get stored in an animal's fat. And so if we are getting a really fatty cut of meat or eating like the skin off of a conventionally raised chicken, for example, we're going to get, different hormones. We possibly will get medications that the animal was given because it needed antibiotics because it was crammed into a feedlot or into very small cages. So if we want to avoid that kind of thing, we need to avoid eating the fats of conventionally raised animals. So, try some leaner cuts of meat, pork, beef, if you're, watching your budget, and spending where you can on the healthier grass-fed cattle, pasture-raised chicken and pork so that you're getting some more nutrients there and maybe having some of your fattier cuts of meat from those grass-fed and pasture-raised sources. Yeah. So anything else you wanted to add, Casey?
Yeah, what to look for in the store if you are wanting a higher quality is it will say grass-fed. Some of it says grass-finished. You might want to ask either the butcher if you're getting it from the butcher if it's grass-finished, or look up the company and see, because a lot of times it will say grass-fed and it will be grain-fed finished, which means it's getting all of those toxic properties that we just talked about. So there's a difference. Pasture raised eggs will obviously have more of those nutrients that we just talked about in here too. So you'll want to make sure at least it says grass fed on there or pasture raised. It's not enough if it just says no antibiotics, no steroids, all natural. Yeah, that's great, but it still does not mean they weren't crammed, stressed, treated like crap, and eating low quality and high omega-6 grains and all these inflammatory things. So those are just marketing keywords that us as human shoppers love to see, but honestly, it is not enough, and it doesn't really help our bodies any, especially if we have an autoimmune disease or a chronic inflammatory disease. It's better than nothing, though. Yes, I will say that. It's better than McDonald's hamburger. Yes.
Amen. No, those are really great points because often it is tricky to know with all the marketing jargon that's used out there on packages what you're actually getting. So yes, thank you, Casey. Good points. I also encourage you guys to check out your farmers market. If you have any farmers that are, within a reasonable distance of you, check them out, ask them, how their meat is raised, what it's fed, all that kind of stuff. They're more than happy to usually share that information. And you're typically going to get a better quality there too. So
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I hope you guys found that helpful. Let us know if you have any questions about this. And we will be back. I'm going to be away next week, so a couple weeks from now.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.